You're listening to the Picks from the Paddock Turf Talk podcast.
As they come to the last fence in the National, and Red Rum with a tremendous chance of winning his third National. He jumps it clear of Churchtown Boy. He's getting the most tremendous cheer from the crowd. They're winning him home now. The 12-year-old Red Rum being preceded only by Loose Horses, being chased by Churchtown Boy. Eyecatcher has moved into third with the Bill Garlic fourth. They're coming to the elbow. There's a furlong now between Red Rum and his third Grand National triumph. But he's coming up to the line to win it like a fresh horse in great style. It's hats off and a tremendous reception. You've never heard one like it at Liverpool. Red Rum wins the National.
A horse who is pure class. Frankel has destroyed them from halfway. An amazing performance as Frankel heads towards the line to make every single yard in the Guineas to win it well.
Hurricane Fly, who's opening up now, approaching the final flight, coming towards it now. It's Hurricane Fly, leads by two. From Countrywide Flame in second, who's rallying. Back in third as well as Rock on Ruby. Stay on the hill. Hurricane Fly, driven out to the line. Can he regain his title? He can. The second in history. Hurricane Fly is the champion hurdler again.
You're listening to the Turf Talk podcast. As always, it's myself, Rory Paddock. We've got Chris, we've got Matt. We're going to be looking to this Saturday's jumps action, gents. We're going to be looking at 4 races, 3 from Wincanton, 1 from Aintree. We'll get stuck into it straight off the bat. 2:25 Wincanton. First race, Matt, red up favourite, reserve tank, current price, even money. We've got the likes of if you say run in there, Ballymoy, reserve tank, stablemate, Vision to Flow, Solomon Gray and Byron Flyer, who both won their last 2 races respectively, and a few others. What do you like the look of in this, mate?
Well, providing they all run, Colin Tizard's got 2 in the race. I don't think both of those will run. I think probably Reserve Tank is the most likely runner. Improved out of all recognition last season as a hurdler, and obviously culminating in that win at the Punchestown Festival. Everyone was looking forward to him making his chase debut after his summer off. Ran in a 3-runner chase at Chepstow. Don't know. I think I was mildly disappointed, I guess, with his debut performance. Only three runners didn't go a silly pace. Jarvis Plate won the race for Fergal O'Brien, and as we now know, after the early part of the season, Fergal O'Brien's horses are in fantastic form, so probably no disgrace to lose to that horse. But he's a short price favourite already in this race, and I guess if he takes his chance, it would be disappointing if he doesn't actually win this race. His opposition, if you say run, obviously gets the mare's allowance. She's a course winner over hurdles. She's got a bit to make up on the ratings. Ballymoy was a solid hurdler last year. Run over a variety of trips from 2 miles to 3 miles. obviously trained by that man Nigel Twiston-Davies, who's in obviously decent form as he usually is this time of year, and the other Colin Tizard horse, which I think is interesting. Maybe if not Saturday, for another day, Vision de Floss. He did have one try over fences early last season, unshipped his rider that day after stumbling, and then obviously reverted back to hurdles. He was a fairly comfortable winner of the National Spirit Hurdle at Fontwell, beaten If the Cap Fits, which I think they quite like. Think that's a decent horse, and if he actually doesn't run on Saturday, he'll definitely be a horse to keep an eye out for. But if Reserve Tank comes on for his debut run and jumps a little bit more fluently this time, hopefully with a slightly quicker gallop, I don't think they're going to hang around in here. I think Ballymoy will take them along. And I think it's you'd like to see Reserve Tank win this, and then obviously go on to better things later in the season.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit of a pain here. Reserve Tank personally. So I was there that day at Chepstow. I backed it. The old adage, always go with the outsider in a 3-runner race. I wish I'd listened, but it travelled well enough. But I think what I found with Reserve Tank just on that one-off performance is that his jumping wasn't horrendous, but he made a ton of mistakes when push came to shove, so say 3 from home. And once he needed to start sort of emptying his reserve tank, his jumping went apart. He started making silly mistakes and errors. Now, maybe that's just because it was his first chase start. He'll have learned a lot from that. By the looks of it, I think blinkers are set to be added for the first time as well. Now, that could potentially perhaps be a massive plus. I just couldn't have him at even money. At least that was a far more competitive race than obviously the one he raced in at Chepstow. I think Ballymoy would have a chance if the rain came at Wincanton and it was very heavy. Obviously, Nigel Twiston-Davies has his horse in good order at the moment. But personally, I'm going for a course winner, course victor in If You Say Run. I think 4-1 is a decent enough price. If you can end up with 5-1 or more for an each way bet to nothing, I think that's probably the best way to go. We'll handle the ground, whether it's good or even if it starts pelting it down as one on heavy as well before. Alright, it didn't really beat much in its first chase start, but did it okay. Nichols' horse obviously has to be respected. So yeah, If You Say Run for me to overturn the very short price favourite. Chris?
Yeah, this race doesn't do that much for me, Rory. Reserve Tank disappointingly beaten last time in a 3-runner race, and if he brought his hurdles game to the fences, he'd probably hack up, but taking a chance at even money doesn't appeal to me. Ballymoy was very disappointing the last day. He's a likely pace angle, but he made so many mistakes at Warwick that I wouldn't trust him when the hammer was down in a race, with the potential to be as decent as this. So Ballymoy, for me, at 5s, offers no value. He must jump much better. And unfortunately, I'm going to be boring. And I think if you can get 5-1 If You Say Run, I think that's a logical bet. She has a mare's allowance. She's a good way below some of these on hurdles marks. But, she goes on any type of ground. She looked like she had plenty left in the tank last time, and she jumps. So If You Say Run for me, boring each way bet to nothing. If you can get 5-1, I don't see an angle to this race other than her.
Moving on, chaps, we'll head over to Merseyside. We'll go up to Aintree. We're just going to take in the one race there, which is the 240. It's a 2 mile 4 furlong handicap chase over the Mile-Make horse. Current favourite is Cepage from Venetia Williams, or Seepage as I christened it before. 9-2, we've got the likes of Duke Street in there, Old Grange Wood, Warsound, Philip Hobbs, the Russian Doyen, Riders on the Storm. It looks a pretty open contest. Big Martra even in there is a bit of a chasing stalwart. I'll come to you first, Chris. 240 at Aintree. Venetia Williams' horse, worthy favourite?
It's hard to say. Roy Horse has been in good form. I think she's operating at a 30% strike rate the last fortnight, so you can see why he'd be towards the top of the market. And obviously he's run some good races at Cheltenham. He finished behind Frodon. in the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup when last seen. So a reproduction of that would probably give him every chance if he's ready to go. You have to wonder if he's a little bit fragile. Obviously, he only had the one run last term, but you would respect the horse coming from Venetia's On Fire Yard. The one that makes most appeal to me, however, is the Russian Doyen. He looks the type to catch early. He's won off long breaks before. I think he's on a reasonable mark. And, from the Colin Tizard yard, Tom Scudamore on top, I think there's a lot in his favour. He'll go on the ground. It won't be an issue. And like I've already said, first time up might be the correct time to catch him. So if you can get what is around 6-1, I think I think he's the value towards the top of the market anyway.
Matt, your thoughts on the race? I mean, it looks ridiculously competitive. I mean, at the minute we've got 15 even runners in there. Your thoughts, bud?
Yeah, I think probably Cepage is a worthy favourite based on his Cheltenham run behind Frodon. I did actually fancy him that day. I thought he ran an absolutely fine race. I think 100. He obviously carries top weight in this race, but I think 147 rating is within his reach. He's only a 7-year-old. Like Chris said, he is lightly raced, but maybe there's a hint of a slight sort of delicate feeling about the horse, but I think he's definitely worthy favourite, and I think this race will probably be run to suit him. He'll probably be handy, just dropped in behind the leaders, and I could see him run the big race. Whether he's value at 9-2, probably not. The Russian Doyen, obviously 6-year-old, ran well at Cheltenham, albeit beaten a very long way. He's obviously open to a significant amount of improvement, but I don't know. A handicap chase round Aintree 2.5 miles, they'll go a good clip, and I think you need a very solid jumper. The pace they go around here, and sometimes it might pay to stick with experience, but another horse I like in the races, I think the horse that won it last year, War Sound, course and distance winner, probably, as Chris alluded to, the Russian Doyen probably being best caught first time out. I think that same thing applies to War Sound. I think he's okay handicap mark of 138. Like I said, he won it last year. I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility that he could do it again, but with fear of contradicting myself slightly, I think the other interesting horse in the race is the Nigel Twiston-Davies horse, the import from Ireland, Riders on the Storm. He only went off 10-1 for the Close Brothers chase and fell before the race developed. He's only a 6-year-old, but he's run a few times in Ireland, and I just think, obviously, as we've spoke about many times before, Nigel Twiston-Davies is the man this time of year, and if he gives him the Twiston-Davies treatment, I think a mark of 140 could be on the lenient side, I think, and he's going to need to jump fluently around there, but I'd be willing to take the risk at the current prices that he's going to run a big race. So yeah, I think Cepage will be there or thereabouts, but I'd be more than happy to take a chance on Riders on the Storm or War Sound.
Yeah, I'm with you. To be honest with you, I like the look of War Sound. Philip Hobbs has his yard in flying form. I think he's had 7 winners of 25 runners in the last 2 weeks. So you know that the yard are doing well, so that's one box ticked. You look at the horse as well. The horse has 100% strike rate here at Aintree, won the race last year, only off £2 lower than what it is today, so not a ridiculous feat for only a £2 rise. The horse as well as won on the going. It's obviously won over distance, won over course and distance as well, so it ticks a ton of boxes. I think potentially if you're looking for a horse who doesn't really make any jumping errors, albeit I think probably too high up in the weights, I think Big Martyr could potentially do alright, but no, I'm with you, Matt. War Sound, if I had to pinpoint it to one. Top yard, ticks a ton of boxes, decent each way shout at around 7-1. Moving back over to Wincanton, chaps, we've got the 3 o'clock race. It is, let's have a look here. It's a 1 mile, 7.5 furlong elite hurdle. It's a grade 2 race. It looks an absolute nightmare, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned. Like Christopher Wood, Kel Destan, Grand Sankey, all from the Paul Nicholls yard. However, it's Fusil Raffles of Nicky Henderson that's the red hot odds-on favourite, 5-4 on, and Dr. Richard Newland's the Patriot in there at 10-3. Other horses like Brandon Castle, Beat the Judge, Top Beak, makes up the field of 8 as it stands at the moment. Personally, I can't see all 3 Nicholls horses running. Can you, Chris?
No, it was very unlikely that he'd run all 3, but I think this totally revolves around Fusil Raffles. Nick Henderson horses have started to run well lately. Dow Jacob booked for the rides. He's been very well backed throughout the week. He's only had the 4 races. It's very impressive the last day at Punchestown. I think a reproduction of that in beating Fakir Douderies would be well and truly good enough to turn these over. I don't know what the official marksman says, but I couldn't see past the Henderson in me. I think he will dot up, and he could be the one potentially that goes on to much better and bigger things. He's only 4 years old. I wouldn't want to be going with horses like the Patriot. I know the horse has done well and caused a couple of upsets, but winning the Swindon, this is not the Swindon. This is not a handicap as such. This is the potential for Fusil Raffles to be a champion hurdle type. I think he could be, and I think he'll dot up here. I think he'll absolutely destroy him.
Matt, are you as convinced with the favourite as Chris?
Yeah, probably, but I don't think I'd back him at I think the current prices he's about 8-11. I think, I wouldn't want to. I'd neither want to back him nor stand on the rails and lay him, to be honest. But I think this race will be run absolutely to suit him because there's definitely pace in the race. Brandon Castle, if he runs, is a tearaway front runner generally. Well, he particularly is on the flat. I can't see it to be any different over hurdles. If Kel Destan runs, he's going to need every yard of this 2 miles on a flat track like Wincanton, so he wouldn't be hanging around either. So there's going to be a lot of pace in this race, and I can just see Fusil Raffles dropping in behind the frenetic early gallop and come there cantering 2 out, and I can't see anything other than the victory for him. He was mightily impressive at Kempton, which is a very similar track to Wincanton. He sadly injured himself in that race, which ruled him out of Cheltenham that season, which I don't think was necessarily a bad thing because he's only a young horse and he hadn't got an awful lot of experience, so they took their time and brought him out again at Punchestown, where he duly obliged. And yeah, I think this is a horse that could definitely go on to much bigger things later on in the season. And this looks an ideal starting point for this season.
Yeah, again, I hate to sort of be a broken record here, but I somewhat agree with you, Matt. I think Fusil Raffles is there. It's the one to beat, but at a price of 5-4 on. Doesn't make much appeal, but equally I wouldn't particularly want to throw a ton of money at laying the horse either. I think it's a worthy favourite. I think it's likely to win. I think just to throw something in the mix, I think if it runs Grand Sankey despite falling last time out, it's probably the best of the rest. Personally, just based on Wincanton form, 4 runs at the venue, never finished outside of the top 2, won twice, second twice. I think if you're looking for a bit of value in terms of a bet, perhaps Fusil Raffles and Grand Sankey reverse forecast if both go, or even go Fusil Raffles the odds-on favourite to beat Grand Sankey. If all 8 run, which I doubt it very much, but if they do, and you can get a 5-1 bet for Grand Sankey each way for the first 3, each way bet to nothing seems simple enough as well. But yeah, worthy favourite, likely winner. Bit boring, but yeah, Fusil Raffles with Grand Sankey to chase him home. Moving on, chaps, the final race we'll be looking at is a 3:35. It's a bit of a prestigious handicap in terms of the National Hunt chasing sort of calendar. It's the Badger Ales Silver Trophy, 3 mile 1 furlong. Current favourite White Moon, despite falling last time out. Tizard Yard, course winner, 9-2. Horse that's won it the last 2 years, Present Man, with Bryony Frost on board. Cloth Cap, who did well to finish 4th on seasonal reappearance. Give Me a Copper, also representing the Nicholls Yard. Little Rockefeller, who obviously is adored by fans. West Approach from the Tizard Yard. The Young Master, who seems to have been around forever and a day. Rockler Casbah, another one. Same with Calypso. Walking the Mill, Carol's Destrier, Royal Vacation. You know, the bog standard, the bog standard sort of handicap chasers that have been around the game for a while now. I'll come to you first, Matt. White Moon was a horse that was pretty well fancied last time out. Seems a bit much to be 9-2 favourite with it falling last time out, though, surely.
Yeah, I mean, White Moon's a horse I like. He's a horse I've mentioned on previous podcasts. I thought he might run well at Cheltenham earlier in the season, but the ground was obviously ridiculously soft, and he waited till Wincanton, I think, the following day. And, you know, I watched that race, and I think he would have won the race. He was a bit unfortunate. He jumped the last fence fine, knuckled over on landing. But his jumping technique leaves an awful lot to be desired. Even though he didn't make any ridiculously glaring mistakes on the way round, he's just got that sense of a horse where you just hold your breath every time he approaches a fence and sort of pleased to see him get the other side. And that's not the type of horse I'd want to be backing, I think, in a race like this at 5-1. Although he's got all the ability in the world, he's absolutely handicapped to win a race like this. But I think ultimately, he's a horse that they will probably end up going back hurdling with, sadly, because I just think there's a flaw in his jumping technique, and he may well win on Saturday, but I couldn't back him at 5-1 with a jumping technique like that. Present Man, obviously, he's won it previously. Horses for Courses again, as we saw last Saturday with Road to Respect at Down Royal. This horse is a standing dish here, particularly in this race. He's obviously handicapped up to the hilt, but you wouldn't be surprised to see a prominent show from him again. Give Me a Cop of the other Nichols runner is a horse. He's only a 9-year-old, has not many miles on the clock. I think he's a horse that Nichols feels can win a decent stay-in handicap at some point, and probably been targeted at this race particularly. So he's definitely a horse I'd be interested in. West Approach for the Tizards again, who obviously the White Moon connection. He ran a fine race at Cheltenham in desperate ground. He just doesn't win enough for me. He runs fine races in these stay-in races, but just doesn't win enough. I'm not sure he knows how to win. So the other horse I'd like to mention is the Young Master. Had a pipe opener 38 days ago on the flat just to prep him for this, and I think he's got a great chance in this race. I think he runs well round here. He's only a 10-year-old, but I think he won a novice chase or a handicap chase around Wincanton as a 5-year-old, so he feels like he's been around forever. But he had a little bit of a renaissance last season, had a very good season last season after a spell in the doldrums, and if he can continue in that vein of form, I think he's definitely well enough handicapped to win a race like this, and I could see him going really well. Neil Mulholland's horses are in decent form, so yeah, I think between Give Me a Copper and the Young Master it'd be my two standouts in this race.
Chris, your thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, it's an absolute nightmare race, this Rory. I mean, Present Man, proven course and distance winner. He's won it twice before. He's won it off 144 and I believe 142 the time before. So off a mark of 148 with Bryony Frost unable to make any claim. It would take a brave man to say that he will win it a third time on the trot. However, he jumps really well. He'll be prominently ridden, so if there's any flaws in the rest of them, I think this was a similar case last season. He's likely to find fitness flaws in the rest of them. He'll be ready to go. There's no doubt about that. But I just think the mark makes it impossible. That being said, I still think he's more than likely to be in the top three. So I think for players, he's the most likely horse probably to place in the race. I just think he's a little bit vulnerable off that mark to win. Cloth Gap I was really interested in on the back of last season. He ran really well in the Scottish Grand National. I weren't too convinced with his run at Chepstow the last day. He got beaten by Ballyoptic and Little Rockefeller. Relentless Dream has done nothing for the form since. However, John Joe is just the type of trainer to aim his horses at races like this, and off a mark of 136, I'm absolutely certain he's got races in him. You know, you talk an 8-1 shot each way, unexposed. I think he's a sensible option along with Present Man. The one horse I would like to see run really well is White Moon. You know, if it hadn't been for knuckling after jumping the final fence here the last day, he'd have trotted up. I think he's a very interesting horse. But like Matt said, you kind of hold your breath with him at the fences, and his jumping is going to be under extreme pressure here, albeit he's a horse that is undoubtedly well handicapped.
Are we perhaps being a little bit unfair? I'm going to come to you with this, Matt. Perhaps being a little bit unfair in ignoring the chances of West Approach. Second on seasonal reappearance and a decent handicap at Cheltenham. This is a horse that's finished second to Paisley Park twice over hurdles. I know it's a different sort of kettle of fish, but second in 2 Grade 2 hurdles seems to have a bit of a touch of class, you know, and represents the top yard. Didn't really do much wrong at Cheltenham a couple of weeks back. Or do you think it's just a case of he's just not made to be as decent a chaser as he was a hurdler?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. He doesn't. I mean, it's hard to criticise a horse that ran as well as he has done in some decent chases, but he just doesn't look like a chaser to me. You know, I think he lacks a bit of scope. The race at Cheltenham where he finished second last time, he looked all over the winner from about 6 out and still didn't manage to win it for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know what you could. Were there any excuses that day?
It doesn't go through with it. He's done it so many times. It's been almost 2 years since his last win. Yeah, for me, he's got an attitude issue. Travels all over he travels all over the winner on numerous occasions and not gone through with it. I wouldn't be wanting to play with him. Obviously, as an each way player, yes, but for win purposes, he's an extremely vulnerable horse.
Yeah, I just think he struggles to win races, basically for whatever reason. I think they've tried him in headgear before, and I think he's pretty much run a similar race in headgear. You know, he's worked his way into the race, looked like challenging with a winning chance, and hasn't managed to do it. And you know, he ran an identical race at Cheltenham first time out this year. He travelled well, looked all over the winner turning in, and then just didn't seem to go through with it up the hill. But I think he's handicapped well enough to win a race like this, but there's a few I'd put in front of him, I think, when the chips are down.
And speaking of others that have obviously been successful, it's the oldest. I'll come to you with this, Chris. It's the oldest horse in the race, Whisper, horse that's finished second to Mike Bite and pretty much near enough beat him previously. Has some top class form. You know, is a Grade 2 winner. You know, decent enough horse on his day, albeit he's now at 11. You know, was beaten. You know, he's been a Grade 1 hurdle winner as well. Is it just a factor of too old, too much weight for Whisper, Chris?
Well, I don't know what sort of issue I'm incurring.
No, you're fine.
Sorry about that. No, he's obviously had his issues, this horse. I mean, he's left the Nicky Henderson stable and had 2 goes for Sam Thomas and Ounshaw and absolutely nothing. Total shadow of his former self. I'd love to see him bounce back. I mean, he would have won the Hennessy if Henderson hadn't have sent him to an egg and spoon race at Kempton the time before and picked up a £3 penalty. So, you know, as much as I'd want to see him bounce back, it's not, you know, for me, he's past it. He's probably way past his best. I don't see Nick Henderson letting top class horses leave for no good reason. So, you know, you wouldn't be able to give me 100 to 1 with him.
Yeah, for what it's worth, gents, my thoughts. I think the favourite's too short, so that's the favourite out for me if I go through him as quick as I can. Present Man, I think too much weight, albeit I agree he's probably going to be in the mix, but without Bryony Frost's weight allowance now, you know, claim it makes it even harder. Cloth Cap, I think, is going to have a really good chance on his seasonal reappearance fall, so I think, you know, I couldn't really put people off that. Little Rockefeller, not in a race like this, not for me. Same with West Approach, I just don't think he's going to make as good a chaser as he was a hurdler. The Young Master has a chance, however, at the age of 10, I don't know how good he's going to be up against some perhaps younger, more precocious types. You can get rid of the likes of Whisper. You can get rid of like Rockler Casbar, who seems to have been around forever. Same with Carol's Destrier, Royal Vacation. I think CP Soups might have had a potential chance as an alternative Neil Mulholland runner, but I think the handicap has got hold of him. And this just looks a bit too much of a competitive race. So, going through them, I think Walking the Mill might have even had a chance. However, I think he's got another tilt at the National as his main target. And I think after finishing 4th at Aintree much earlier on in the year, in the National itself, I think it's weighted to the hilt now, unfortunately. Philip Hobbs' Beau de Brisay is a youngster that could potentially throw a bit of a spanner in the mix. Same with Venetia Williams' horse. But again, has to step up on what it's done so far to be in the mix with this. So I'm kind of left with 3, really. Harry Fry's Just a Sting I like the look of. It has to improve on what it's done in terms of such a competitive race like this. However, it ticks a few boxes in terms of it's got a 50% strike rate on going like this. It's got a 50% strike rate over the distance. Harry Fry seems to be doing all right. He grabbed a recent winner. So yeah, Just a Sting is a potential each way shout. Not with an abundance of confidence. Cobra de Mai as well of Dan Skelton at a much bigger price. Unfortunately pulled up on his seasonal reappearance, but Cobra de Mai, again, looking at stats, absolutely loves it going. So won't be perturbed. Likes this sort of trip as well. I think perhaps even the further they go, the better. So if the rain comes, then that'll probably play into his hands as well. But I think if we had to go for one, it'd probably be the course winner, Calypso. Venetia Williams, we've already touched upon in previous races that she seems to have her yard going pretty well. Again, won't be perturbed by the going. There's one over going like this. Actually has a 100% strike rate here at Wincanton as well. Has won first time up previously. Has perhaps the class to be in the mix with a race like this, albeit not being the classiest horse in the race. So yeah, 16-1, Calypso, decent each way punt. Hopefully Venetia will have it fit for first time out. It's won first time out before, so it's not too much of a concern. With the likes of Just a Sting and Cobra de Mai, 2 7-year-olds with perhaps a bit of improvement in them. But yeah, that's our thoughts. Hopefully we've had a few winners this week. Make sure you stay tuned, follow us on Twitter at PixPaddock, like us on Facebook, and make sure you listen to our next episode early next week.